Everybody, welcome to the second episode of the SEO Traffic Show. I wanted to start correctly this time because last time I got caught out by the live button. Today it's Andrew who's dealing with it. Beautiful, beautiful launch of the second episode. Tristam, welcome back. I'm really glad that it's you for the second episode. So we're doing 2 in a row together. And I suspect we'll probably end up doing 3 in a row together because you're so very good at this.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Cheers, Travelpayouts and SEMrush for having me involved. And always working with you, Jason, is a pleasure. I had a blast last time. So everyone watching now is installed for a fun-packed, knowledge-packed session.
Well, after the first episode, what I realized is how very good you are at digging down into the stuff, using SEMrush, which I love as a tool, digging down and seeing what's wrong and explaining it, because that's one of my big failures in life is I can't explain those simple things to people who don't really know what I'm talking about to start with, and you do that incredibly well.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. That's kind of how I found, I guess, a little niche with myself is working in particular companies. I felt like I was the middleman between where it's sort of in-house roles, I would be the in-between person between sort of like a board or directors and the web developers who would be hiring externally and trying to make one party understand what the other party was trying to say. So yeah, thank you for that. It seems to be working for me. Excellent.
Brilliant stuff. Right, we're going to get into the housekeeping stuff. Stream rules. I don't know if they're really rules, but if you've got questions, please do ask them in the chat box. Andrew will copy them across and we'll try to answer them as we go along. If we don't answer them as we go along, we'll answer them when the correct opportunity comes along. So do ask your questions. Tristam and I both know an awful lot about SEO, awful lot about on-page and off-page SEO, so we can answer and we can help. The recording and the slides will be sent to you after the webinar. If you've registered, obviously you'll receive it by email. If you haven't registered and you just turned up, you won't receive them, but they will still be on the same URL so you can come back, because this webinar is being recorded, which sounds kind of scary if you look at it in that manner. Now, TPAS 2020 Travelpayouts Affiliate Summit 2020, October the 5th to the 9th, excuse me, 2020. Do turn up. It's going to be awesome. Look it up on the internet if you don't know where to go. TPAS 2020 Travelpayouts Affiliate Summit. It's going to be absolutely awesome, as we can see from the 2 fingers in the bottom right-hand corner, which I absolutely love. Quick introduction. I'm Jason Barnard. I'm the Brand SERP guy at Kalicube. I'm obsessed by what appears when somebody searches your brand name. I call it your new digital business card. What does appear when somebody searches your brand name? Try it now for yourself and see what turns up. It might not be quite as good as you expect. I'm also an expert in the knowledge graph, how Google understands the world and how it uses that within its algorithms. Tristam is just as skillful, intelligent, and wonderful, but he's much more into the nitty-gritty stuff, which is why he's the guest today, because he explains all that stuff so much better than I do, which is what I was saying earlier on. Co-founder at Purple Smudge, which is the best name of a company I've ever heard. Welcome, Tristam. Thank you for coming along.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to today's session. The sites that we picked, once we jump in, obviously I'll reveal those, but yeah, this, as I said earlier, it's going to be knowledge packed, and I'm really, really hoping that what I present about these sites, these people can implement, and I'd really like to hear back from them just to see what improvements they've seen from the recommendations that, and changes we'll be looking at today.
Absolutely brilliant. I've had a sneak peek and I know it's going to be really useful. The sneak peek has been really, really interesting. And what we're going to start with is, as with last time, the issues that are common to both websites. So we can kind of cover the big questions in one go. And then for each website, we can actually deal with the specific questions. So we're going to start with the common website issues that they both have. Now, backlinks. I love this design. I love the explanation. What is a backlink? You're saying that they both have backlink problems.
Yes.
What do you mean by that? Because backlink problems doesn't say very much to me.
No, it doesn't, does it? And as you know, Jason, and anyone watching who's familiar with backlinks, it's it's quite a wide subject. It's not just really go out and acquire as many backlinks as possible. Those are the old days, and if anyone lived in the old days, they know the ramifications of going out and doing that. So just a quick synopsis of what we'll be covering there. So we'll be looking at backlinks. I'll actually drop a link into a short backlink video I did in partnership with SEMrush for anyone who's sitting there going, Tristam, backlinks, what are you going on about? I'm new to SEO, I'm new to backlinks, I don't really know what you're doing or what you're talking about. So I'm just going to drop that into the chat box now for anyone that wants to have a look at that after we've finished this session. But yeah, it's funny. One site actually has a high toxic backlink problem, and the other site doesn't really have a lot of backlinks. So I'm going to be diving in and discussing that and giving some direction on what you can do to resolve.
Okay, I mean, so this idea of backlinks, I mean, it's a link into your site. Google's traditionally, if we can say that, for the last 20 years, it's taken that as an incredibly strong signal to whether it should rank a website or not, or a web page rather, or not. Some sites don't have enough. In this case, we have one, and some sites have lots, but they're rubbish. And the idea of rubbish, you said toxic. I mean, it's just links that are useless, because there was a big period in the web where people created links because it won the little simple game that Google was allowing us to play. And today those are coming back to bite us all in the bum, if I may say so.
Yeah, and as you probably know from the last 10 years, some sites have suffered seriously, you know, crushed themselves by slightly unscrupulous tactics, but
yeah, I mean,
possibly a whole other webinar in itself.
But it is, I mean, but we can quickly say, I mean, one thing is these toxic backlinks have come from the idea that we were cheating and we were getting away with it up until, like, let's say 5-6 years ago. We're not anymore. Cheating, is it worth it? Do you think you can game the system anymore?
I think there's always a way of gaming everything. Do I agree with it? No. I think longevity, being natural and organic, is the way you should build your website, web presence, you know. And again, we could go into talking about EAT, you know, authority and trust, etc. So, but we don't have time.
No, I didn't want to get into that. I mean, basically it was, you can cheat, but is it worth it? The answer is,
not in the long run.
Of longevity, no. And the backlinks are a great example. If you read up on backlinks, and Tristam will certainly share links for that, is you will see that if you cheated and got away with it for years, it's now biting you in the bum, and it will be killing your site. So you can assume whatever cheats you find today will one day bite you in the bum. So my personal advice, and I think Tristam would agree, avoid cheating, be honest, make a great user experience. Now, Google crawler issues, that's nothing to do with cheating or user experience. What do you mean by Google crawler issues?
So I was going to really look at this as, you know, what does Google and crawlers see that I don't? So, you know, you can go to any website, as long as it functions correctly, you know, you kind of as a person think this website works fine. Google will see that in exactly the same way. And then what you need to do is go away and do a site audit. And I'll show you a couple of little tricks or hacks, however you want to call them, to sort of reveal some other hidden data that search engines will see that you won't. And again, I don't want to give away too much before we jump in, but there's some alarming yet resolvable, very easily resolvable situations that, you know, huge numbers of pages that shouldn't be being crawled by Google are being crawled by Google, absolutely crushing your crawl budget, unnecessarily ruining your rankings, possibly, maybe not. Or if you've got reasonable rankings, you know, sorting these problems out will only help that further.
I mean, a quick word on that. On the left, we've got a spider. On the right, we've got a robot. And that's because some people talk about spidering the web. We talk about spiders. Robots is the actual word that Google would tend to use. It's called Googlebot, and Bing have a Bing bot. But the idea basically is these are machines, a robot, and Google's now answering me because I said it tonight. My phone's just woken up. That come through your site as though they were a user. Sorry, I just said it in French. As though they were a user. And if it cannot access your pages, it cannot possibly present it to its users as a possible solution to their problems. So you have to make sure that its robot can spider your site, which is how we can bring those two, the robot and the spider, together. If the robot can spider your site, crawl your site, it will be able to see what you have to offer, and it will potentially be able to offer it as a solution to the problem the person searching on Google is presenting to Google and looking for an answer or a solution to that problem, which is absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen because we've talked about everything globally, and now somebody's asked, what are, Olivia Jones, what are the sites we're going to be talking about? And Tristam, that's your bag, not mine. Oh, excuse me, Olivia Johns. I actually can't read. My spectacles are just for show. I actually literally cannot see more than about 2 feet in front of me. Olivia Johns asks, what are the general recommendations for do follow links? I always get offers from other webmasters to promote them using do follow links, but it feels like it's somehow prohibited by Google. Feels like it's somehow prohibited is a real big understatement. What do you think, Tristam?
Yeah, if I sort of as a general rule, if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. Yeah, you know, links should be created naturally. As I say, I popped a link in the comments on YouTube. So if you watch that video, it's only about 10 minutes long, and that will take you through that question and a number of other points of, you know, what to look out for, pitfalls, how to go out and build links. But yeah, if you're being approached to, let me just read the question again. Yeah, if you're being approached,
Google explicitly says you shouldn't buy, swap, or even ask for links. I mean, not asking for links is a bit of a grey area, but you shouldn't buy them, and you shouldn't say, "Oh, I'll swap you one link for another."
Yeah, that's very old school as well.
And I think that's a fair comment from Google. It's saying the idea of a link is it's a vote of confidence.
Yeah.
And if you swapped it or bought it, that's absolutely no confidence at all. So you're making its life more difficult. And if you make Google's life more difficult as a general rule, it will not do you any favors. Agreed?
Yeah, agree. And as I said earlier, you know, try to keep things natural and organic. So does that feel natural? That question, to me, it doesn't. So I wouldn't personally proceed with that. Like with a lot of things that we covered in the last show and this show, if you don't do things in the right way, in a natural way, you can start to stack up a number of issues that might not seem like a lot now, but over a year or 10 years, they start to become a bit of a pain and a headache.
I love that point of view. It's saying, you know, you can get away with one or two little things, but when they stack up, it will stack up and bite you. And at some point, you will suffer from problems from what you've been doing. And as a general rule, I actually personally don't think cheating is necessary. I think if we do serve the clients right, and we do, and that's important. I mean, I talk about making sure Google understands what it is we're offering, making sure that Google understands that we're credible as a solution for its users, and thirdly, making sure that we can deliver and it can deliver our content to its users in the context, they find themselves in. And if you look at it that way, it's a question of understanding, credibility, and deliverability. Over to you, Tristam. You're going to be talking about the two great sites. One of them is about Texas, Austin, and the other is about New York, right?
Yeah, let me share my screen.
Although you did say earlier on, the one about New York isn't actually very much about New York. So,
well, no, it is, but then there's let's not get into it just yet. Right, so the two sites we're going to be covering are We Love New York, and I can certainly say I love New York too, and I've got a newfound love for things to do in Austin. I didn't really know much about Austin, Texas, and I think...
Now you know far too much.
Yeah, and I really want to do a trip now to New York. And then to Austin. I've got family in New York, so it's actually my favourite city.
But that's a great kind of reason for this kind of site to exist, because we find it as human beings, and I think sometimes we forget in SEO that there are human beings who are actually looking at this stuff, and these sites have made you want to go there. So we really want to help them to be found on Google, because it will encourage people to want to go there, which is a wonderful, positive human experience.
Yeah. Definitely. So the first site we're going to be having a look at is We Love New York. As Jason already said, we're going to be going through some offsite stuff, which is going to be backlinks, and then we're going to be looking at some on-site stuff. I'll be doing We Love New York first, and then we'll be looking at find things to do in Austin. So Vivian, you are the person who runs We Love New York. I hope you're here today. If you are, please just give us a shout in the comments to say you're here, because that would be awesome. And so I will jump in. So as I say, the first thing we're going to be looking at backlinks and auditing it through SEMrush. So if I jump in, which I've already done this, otherwise we'll be here forever. Let's just open. So actually, just the same as I did last time, if you are an SEMrush user or thinking of using SEMrush, what I do is I would set up a project in SEMrush, come in, and as many of these as you can set up and get running, because the wealth of information, and as we spoke about earlier, understanding what Google crawlers can see that you can't, this will give you a whole wealth of information. Whenever I look at a client's website, I tend to jump in here along with a number of other pieces of software and techniques. But I set this up, and this just gives me like a landscape view of the site's health and sort of, you know, what we're looking at, good, bad, or ugly type thing. So let me just jump into the backlink audit section. Firstly, just want to say I absolutely love this website, which I think I've already said. It's great. The colors are nice. It flows well. Information's awesome. So it looks like it ranks for a number of good key terms as well.
Right.
But as we jump into the backlink section, we can see this dreaded high toxicity score. Now I've clicked on it. So we've got, you know, about 6% of the backlinks SEMrush is saying they're not good, and then 18% is potentially still not great. So really,
what that's saying is SEMrush think that these will look unnatural to Google. Yeah. And it's the unnatural idea, i.e. I bought it or I swapped it.
Yeah, or there's other weird sort of spammy ways that you might not even have gone out to create these, and we'll see an example of that, which I'm sure Vivian did not go out and create some of these links.
Sorry, Vivian.
So what I'd also do is, because I didn't have access to Google Search Console, if you've set that up, I would connect that. Again, it just brings in more and more information. So this is the overview. This is the audit section, and what this here, and we'll just have a look at the first few links just to gauge an idea of, do we feel these are natural? Bearing in mind this website is mainly a French website. Vivian, I believe you started this in 2009. I can't remember whether you're from Paris, I do apologize, but moved to New York, started the blog in 2009. So a bit of context there. So if we're having a look here, I've got a feeling setting this link from ukstove.com, and I've actually checked, this website doesn't actually exist at the moment. And it's what it's linking to is actually an image, and the second one down is linking to an image. And I would say, without going through each of these and doing like a full site audit now, I'd say that one I've just highlighted there, and I'm probably not even going to announce the wording that I can read here, but I would say that was not a created link.
Right, but I mean, that's the kind of link that can get created despite ourselves, and Google tells us that we don't need to worry about that. They can sort that out. So that's one aspect. And the other aspect is UK stoves. I mean, that really attracts my attention, because not only is it not New York or the United States, but it's about stoves and not travel. That's obviously not relevant. So unnatural can also mean irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. So what I would do here is, there's a number of tabs here. There's a remove, disavow, but the one we're going to jump into next is lost and found.
All right. Okay.
So what we can do is we can break down through a process. So you could either go through the audit tab and go link by link and audit that yourself, create a disavow list and clean up those links. Or depending on the time that you have as an individual or the team that you have working with you, I know everyone works differently, you might want to take it like this. So you go into the lost and found section, And then you can break these down into new, broken, and lost. So I would have a look at all newly created links. And there's an awesome little score here giving you an idea. So anything I think under 45, SEMrush is kind of saying, yeah, that's looking okay. Anything 45 to, I can't remember, 50 something is looking at the potential toxicity, and then anything higher than that's coming in as red and really should be reviewed. And I think, yeah, you should be looking at a process of trying to get these to be removed and disappear, really. And then you'll have a nice little beautiful backlink profile.
And that's a good point, is because Google says they can figure this out for themselves, but truth be that they don't necessarily do that. So it's best to get them removed if you're worried.
Yeah, I feel so. You know, yeah, I'll stop there. I feel so. Otherwise, I'll get carried away with that.
but it is, if you're worried about a link, get it removed. Google might not sort it out for itself. Don't take the risk. Make the effort, get it removed.
Well, exactly. And, you know, a lot of people are trying to, as this is, you know, a lot of these are affiliate sites, you're trying to monetize your site. So what are you waiting for? You know, you want your website to be performing the best it can be in the eyes of Google and users. So don't hang around, don't wait. I get cracking on with these tasks. And actually SEMrush really helps you crack on with this as a task base. So, you know, you can add things to Trello in SEMrush, and then you can also create the disavow file in here and all sorts of other neat tricks. And once I've got a second, what I'll do is I'll put the free online course to link building with SEMrush in the comments. And then there'll be some other instructional information available on how to kind of dive in deeper on these. But what I do is I go through all the new links, decide which ones you want to keep, which ones, you know, like this one's looking like it's got high toxicity. Sort of saying here, I think this is probably in French, but it looks like it's a resume builder. This doesn't really seem like this is relevant to your website, Vivian. So I would look to get some of these removed. And then you jump into broken links. And so sometimes broken links can be bad links that have just disappeared, or it can be a process of what's called like link reclamation, where just for some reason you were linked to a website and then that link's been lost. You will get notified in this program, and then you can actually maybe contact the website owner, developer, whoever, and say, hey, I had a link on your website, I see it's gone. And it might just be you know, a developer error, someone removed it by accident, and you might be able to get that link reinstated. And then lastly, lost links. Sort of similar to broken, but yeah, where have you lost them? Where have they disappeared to? Do you need them back? Do you want them back? There's something about CHD Chemical Limited. If that's lost, then I've got a feeling that's probably a good one to lose for you, because there doesn't seem to be anything chemical related with We Love New York. So right. I would say on this, really come in to this section, run your backlink audit. And then, yeah, start to work through in that sort of little process, stage process to improve and eradicate the bad links.
And reclaim links that you might have lost that would have been useful. So it's kind of, there is a positive aspect to this, which is encouraging, because I think working on just the negative stuff gets depressing. But when you think, oh, I'm claiming something positive back, that's wonderful. Yeah,
that's it. And, you know, it might be that, an accidental error has been made on somebody else's behalf on that linked website, as I say. And by doing this process, you might actually see that there was a reasonably high traffic link. So it's not always about getting links to get higher up the rankings. Sometimes you might have a link that actually just helps drive a lot of referral traffic. You lose that link, and then that sort of little pipeline of traffic disappears. Right. So, yeah, that's
brilliant.
That's on that. So, what have we got next? Excuse me. Let me jump back into the project.
Right. Okay. So we're going to go beyond the links now and look at.
Yeah. So sorry, we're going to be jumping into on-site now.
That's a bad score, isn't it?
Yes. That's. But before we all panic, there's some really simple logical steps that can be taken. Yeah, it's one of the lower scores I have seen doing these site audits like this. One thing, so I've run this, and before we even jump into having a look at what the program's saying, there's a great little tip hack, I don't know, where you do a site search or search, is it search operator? Oh, I forget. But basically you put site colon into Google and then the prefix of the website, and you can either have the HTTPS or not. There's a few ways of doing it, but if we run this, we see that Google is looking at about 3,670 pages. Straight away, I'm jumping into the first few results I'm getting, and I'm like, these are weird. So what's going on here? And I've had experience with this before, and this is looking like it could be a Yoast plugin issue, because I see you are using Yoast, and or it might just be an attachment issue. But a while ago there was an issue with Yoast that images were being indexed as attachment pages. I don't know whether you're familiar with this at all, Jason.
Yeah. Well, yeah. They've got a toggle system where you either say index the image or index the page, and they're saying, oh, don't index the page, because WordPress by default creates a page for each image, and that makes index bloat is what I would call it.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was an issue, I heard about it, and when there was an update, it switched them all to being pages instead of just images.
Yeah.
And you want to be you want an image to be indexed as an image and not as a page.
Yeah.
And then they switched it back. Now, why wouldn't it have switched back for her?
I can't remember what the whole process was, but what to resolve this, you just need to go into the settings and set it so it doesn't save images as attachment pages, and then over a period of time that will clean up all of these.
Right, yeah, and they've got Yoast have put a really useful piece of text that says, we recommend that you set this to off.
Yeah.
And follow their advice. Yoast are really smart bunch of people. A good rule of thumb is follow their advice, because they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And so I wasn't able to collate the exact number of these pages, but I can guarantee you it's not going to be helping you. You know, you have what's known as a crawl budget. Google will come and spend X amount of time crawling your site and going away and saying, oh, these are all the pages we found for you. So if we just have a look at what we can see just on this first scroll, they're looking like they're all image attachments, and then we'll just go to one more page, there's still more. So, you know, that's already 20 results we've seen. I can guarantee you, I don't know, let's just randomly jump to page 8. There we go. There's still a few more in here. So just think, if you went away and you rectified, I think it's probably just a tick box, you rectified that, waited a period of time, you'll start to see this number here reduce quite significantly, which means that Google won't be wasting its time showing people these pages or, you know, indexing them, allowing all your awesome content, Vivian, to be ranked even better. And as I say, there are already some really strong rankings for this site, keyword rankings, that is. So I'm hoping that, you know, all of this will just boost your site even more. And so just quickly.
Well, I think we can say help Google and it will help you. And by having that, you're not helping Google. So
no. Let me just grab the URL. And so I just like to mess around. I actually saw Dawn Anderson post out a way of finding people's staging servers on people's staging servers being indexed on Google with this nice, neat little trick. And so I'm just going to show you guys, because I'd found this already. Yeah, look, so I put in site staging because I'd found that the staging site might be indexing. And you've got 1,440 pages of your staging site being indexed. I'm assuming, as it's a staging site, test site, you don't want anyone to be seeing it, but it's there for the whole world to see. And it's, again, not helping Google understand your site, how it should be crawled.
And it's wasting Google's time. You're not helping Google at all.
Yeah, exactly.
And once again, that's a simple tick box in the reading section of WordPress. You just ticket discourage search engines from indexing this site, and you're away.
Exactly. So just on those two issues, I think you should see a reasonable site improvement. And then obviously coming into SEMrush, let's let it load. You can see here this nice, neat little dashboard of what the overall issues are. So great if you know, as an individual, you can see a dashboard of what's going on with your site audit, or if you're working within a team, this is kind of great to share, to say, look, this quite clearly says we have some problems. We need to jump on these guys. And then when you jump into the issues, you know, you can start to scroll through here, and I will be covering a few more of these issues as I continue discussing with you guys. So let me just grab the next section. So yeah, as part of this, what I wanted to do was then look at content, so getting the right mix. And here I want to talk about content focus and not confusing Google and users. And so if we have a look at We Love New York, I am just going to be cheeky and change it to English. Cool. And so We Love New York, as we discussed at the beginning of this webinar, Google wants to understand expertise, authority, and trust. And this website, I would say, is mainly on New York and New York-based information. And so, you know, Google will want to see that. And then as I'm scrolling through the site, I do see that there is a reasonably large amount of content about other places in America, other countries in the world, and other cities in the world. If you're looking, you know, if you set up a website on Rolex watches, you probably wouldn't want to be talking about Casio watches, because you want to be the #1 Rolex website review site, say. And so I'm assuming that would be the same with you, Vivian. You want to really drive this website so, you know, people are coming to your website as a resource, booking trips or finding out information so you can monetize your site. And by, you know, Google understanding what your site is about and what people it should be sending there, putting some of this information on the site won't necessarily help you with your overall objective. What are your thoughts on that, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, for me, what I say, I mean, obviously, we Take Me to New York book. I mean, isn't that the aim of the site, is to push people through to buy this book? Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, you want to get people in, you want to get them interested in New York, so they buy the book. So they decide they want to go to New York, which is what you did when you saw the site, Tristam. And then they buy the book because the book's going to guide them. I mean, and this is a wonderful little business model that I'm terribly keen on. And the whole, I love the idea that the aim of Vivian is to create content that gets people excited about New York, because that will then sell the book, because people want to go to New York. Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily say take it all away and go and create a new site at the moment, but planning for the future, I would, yeah, just consider whether you feel other country-based content or other city-based content sits appropriately on We Love New York, or whether... Yeah. Sorry, I mean, my sister wrote a book about going to London, then she wrote one about going to New York, then she wrote another one about going, can't remember where the other one was. I mean, she wrote a series of books about different places. I mean, I don't know how much Vivian knows about these other places, but I would suspect that with the list of countries, if you can show us, she's perhaps expanded too fast. I mean, writing all those books is going to be impossible. And so the actual monetization of the site is going to be problematic. But if you said, okay, Take Me to New York book, and then Take Me to Paris book, but then, as you rightly say, the title of the site doesn't necessarily correspond. Yeah. Yeah, but that's a long-term strategical problem more than anything. Exactly. So yeah, just think about the future and what that might hold, because yeah, I think this website's 11 years old. So I can definitely see, you know, it possibly, I don't know, started off with going, oh, you know, I think Vivian's from Paris.
or certainly is from France. And so, you know, you want to put a bit of French relevant content on there about those places, I mean. And obviously the site is written in French.
Yep.
And then, you know, you probably just added a bit over time, and then you find yourself with a huge amount of other related content outside of what New York is about. And so I'm just going to grab another link, and I'll just keep.
I mean, just a word of warning to Vivian. I mean, don't do that in any quick sense. I mean,
Yes.
I just looking up "We Love New York." You have a great brand SERP. That means Google's understood "We Love New York" as an entity. The website itself is something that's important in Google's mind. So the name of it, even though it does talk about New York specifically, actually means something to Google. So you need to consider that very carefully.
Yes. Yeah. It's not a rash decision.
Brand equity, both for your users and for Google, needs to be maintained as far as is possible. Go ahead, sorry.
And so then the second point I found, as I said in the first episode, what I do with sites is kind of like an eyeball check. Just go through a site, see how it works, functions, you know, take it from the perspective of a user. So I found this site, I want to go to New York. And as the site is mainly written in French, I would assume this is directed towards French speakers. And there's this great interview here with this lady. And as we can see, there's, you know, obviously it's written in French here. And then what I noticed was we scrolled down, and then the interview is actually in English, which I can understand why, because I'm assuming the lady that has been interviewed was probably American. I've not read the full interview, so I do apologize. So that might be why this piece of content's written in English. But looking at it from a user's perspective, obviously, you know, in this day and age, we can jump between, like I've just changed the whole site by Google Translate into English, but then Google's going to have trouble coming to your site going, oh, so there's some French written content here, then there's English, then there's French again. As I say, it's not penalizing your site hugely, but if you change it to either, I would say either just sort of run it through all French, or possibly in the future, again, grand plans, you could look at having a English version of the website and a French version of the website to cater for both languages. And then Google will much further understand what the website's about and who it should be directed to.
For this specific page, I mean, I think what you need to remember is right at the top of the HTML, the first thing that Google gets is what language this page is in. You can't see it here, but right at the top, the first piece of information the robot that we were talking about earlier on gets is, this is in French. And then as it goes down, it suddenly finds something in English, and that's throwing it a curveball, as we say in English, or in American rather. Oh, it will be a googly in English, because that's cricket, isn't it? And that's a really bad idea. So I mean, I would suggest in this particular circumstance is say translate that article or the interview into French, and then have either a pop-up or a different page to see the original version, which would sort out Google. It would probably please your French audience a lot. And then people in France, French speakers who do speak great English, who think, I really want to read the original because I can understand it. And I think it's great to get the grain of what she was actually saying, can then click on the link and go to the page and read the original version. But right now you're confusing Google, and as Tristam says, probably confusing your users.
Exactly. So it's, as we discussed at the beginning of this, it's all about just doing things that, you know, it's a lot of little pieces that create this big jigsaw puzzle in a sense, you know, and if you're missing certain pieces, you're not helping yourself out. So by doing all these little fixes and changes, Google will like you more, your users will like you more, and you'll like yourself more, because hopefully, you know, you'll be driving more traffic to your website and everyone's happy and sort of buying more stuff from you, etc. And so just the last bit on this section I wanted to discuss is, let me just put it up in here. So this is how I found the issue. Helps if I spell correctly. So there's some mixed content issues I was able to find. And without jumping in too far on that, usually what that means is you've upgraded your website to HTTPS to make it more secure. But this program is finding issues on the site, and that being that there's some HTTP, so unsecured images or related content on that page. And Google doesn't like that. It'll throw up a warning. Let's have a look at an example. So we've got here, and as you can see right at the top here, this little icon says everything's great. But let's just jump back to the home page.
It's secure content. It's SSL, HTTPS. It means that the information that's being sent from the site to you, to the user, is encrypted. Nobody can read it on the way through. And Google's very keen on the idea that information is private between the different people, the servers and the people who are actually reading the information. And here we have a page which is not secure. What does that mean?
So it gives you the exact information in SEMrush. So if we grab this page, what it's saying is on this page, which is the home page.
I mean, oh right, okay. It's not the entire page is insecure. It's something on that
page. So yeah, that's what I was saying. It's just an element on the page, and I think this just gives you basically it's images or HTTP link to YouTube here, which probably just needs to be updated. This image here, which has now redirected. So right, let's have a look at this one here.
Oh, sorry, that particular question is that they've linked to the image with HTTP, but it actually redirects to HTTPS, so it's triggering this problem. Just really quickly, I mean, you can actually sort out probably 99% of these issues with a plugin on WordPress called Really Simple SSL. I use it on every site because I'm too lazy to sort the problems out myself. You click on a button, it sorts 99% of these problems out, and it's absolutely wonderful. And I didn't give them a review, and I do apologize, but they're getting a plug today. Really Simple SSL on WordPress, works an absolute treat, doesn't break your site most of the time. And I've been using it on my two sites for a year now, and unfortunately that just means I've been lazy and haven't sorted out some of the little problems I should have done. But then, yeah, save myself boatloads of time.
Well, exactly, because I didn't know about that particular plugin, but I was going to say I'm sure there is a plugin out there that will help you do this rather than go through here. And I think it was 520 issues that were picked. So you imagine if you had to go through 520 links and just add an S in because you hadn't done that in your HTTP to HTTPS site migration. It's just time consuming. And time is money for everyone, and you don't want to be spending time doing these boring things. You want to be creating awesome content and taking amazing photos and plugging your website. So yeah, that's the last piece on that one. Oh no, it isn't. It isn't, is it?
Oh,
got that little cheeky bit. So a bit about page bloat because we covered site speed in the last episode. But I couldn't help myself. I had to check the site speed of these two sites that we're talking about today. And I'm just going to grab this.
Yeah, that's fairly typical of anybody who's really keen on SEO, is they can't help themselves checking all this stuff. And so kind of, we weren't going to talk about site speed today. So we've decided to say, okay, rather than talking about site speed, we're going to talk about page bloat, pages that have just got too much big, chunky, heavy, slow content. Go ahead.
Exactly. So just quickly pop this link up. This will give us. So on Pingdom, which is a site speed tool, recommend you use it. We're actually going to have a look at another one quickly. But you can see in yellow highlighted here, the average size is about 2.7 or 0.7 megabytes from 892 processed websites. So that's websites like Google, YouTube, and whatever the other ones were. So that gives you a benchmark of what a good site size of a page should be. Let's have a look at this one. Well, we've got 8.5 megabyte, and I personally think that is huge. But some really simple things can be changed. So just by serving the right sized images will save you about 4.5 megabytes. So you've almost like stripped half of that away, and that should be a fairly simple change to be able to do. if you come into this program, or Vivian, drop me an email, I could just send you this link, or hit me up on Twitter. I can send you the link to this report I've run, and on here it's really great website because it's like, what does this mean? It gives you the information, and it gives you some little instructional information here on what to do with certain images. So we've saved almost 4.5 meg instantly, and there's some other little savings here. This one's a little bit more, a little bit less of a size saving, but yeah, optimize your images. So this is about lucil, I can't even pronounce that, compressing. So I'd have a look at that one. If you work with a developer, I would drop them an email and say, look, can you have a look at all these issues? If you do the development yourself, you know, everyone works differently. Those 2 issues should be relatively simple for you to sort out. And as you can see, you know, if you could just chop that in half, that will help dramatically. And site speed is a ranking factor. So the longer your site takes to load and the bigger it is, you know, it's not going to look favorably in Google's eyes. And also people waiting for your site to load. As you can see, the fully load time on this particular test was about 11 seconds. And there's some more mechanics to what you see and how it all loads. But yeah, I would have a look at those 2 particular issues to de-bloat your page or pages.
Right. And from a practical standpoint, plugins you should be looking at. Smush is very famous and very good, very reliable plugin for that. EWWW is another one. These are opportunities. If you don't have a developer, they're plugins you might want to look at. I often use Cloudflare, which is a CDN, and it's a little bit more complicated in the sense that you need to understand a little bit how it works, but it pushes your content to servers around the world to be served to people from nearer where they actually are, which is an incredibly powerful way of getting content to them faster because it's closer. And the other thing is it has a lot of these tools built in where it will optimize your images, it will optimize your HTML, and it will optimize your JavaScript and your CSS. So a lot of these problems taken care with. So have a look at Smush, have a look at EWWW, and have a look at Cloudflare. Make the decision that works for you, depending on whether you're a developer or not. Go ahead.
Yeah, totally agree. And so that's the sort of short section on We Love New York. As I say, both sites, if you guys or anyone watching this, you know, hit me up with a question on Twitter if you've got anything related to what we've been discussing, and I'd be more than happy to answer that question. I see a question's come in from...
I was going to say, before we pass on to
Austin,
it was, what is staging? I mean, staging is a weird word. Some people call it dev, because it's a development platform. So it's staging or dev, but it's basically you duplicate your site, you make a copy of your site, and you work on it without making it live, without making it accessible to Google or to your users to update things like your articles or maybe your site speed or the schema markup in your site, whatever it might be. And then you switch that across and you make it live. So it's a private development of the site. It's a private version of the site where you can work on things that aren't public. So if you have a staging site or a dev site, depending on what you call it, make sure, as Tristam said earlier on, that you don't allow Google to crawl it. You don't allow Google to see it, because if it does, it will index it. And once again, you're wasting its time. And you've got 2 sets of exactly the same information. And that isn't helpful for anybody.
And also, you might have, you know, depending on what brand or website you run, you might have some upcoming launches on there. You might have sensitive information that you don't want the general public to see. And numerous times I've come across companies that, have accidentally published and indexed their staging site. And as I say, I think there was a great, it was either on Twitter or, but basically Dawn Anderson wrote an article or tweeted about saying how you could do that site search with the staging query. I'll just chuck it in here. And so then you can actually start to see how many companies have staging at the front of their site. Not all of these are, obviously, but
some of them actually are called staging, which is strange. But But for your own site, bring it back to something more manageable. It's check. If you do have a development or a staging platform, check using site : staging.mysite.com or dev.mysite.com. Is it indexed or not? If it is indexed, there are a couple of things you want to do. One of which is use the discourage robots from indexing it in the WordPress read section. Or if you don't use WordPress, add something to robots to say disallow and no index. That will be something you need to talk to your developer about. And you can actually remove it using Search Console by excluding that subdomain and asking Google to remove it from its index for the next 6 months. When you do that, be very, 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 very careful not to remove the full site, because the whole thing then goes down the pan. You're not indexed at all. So before doing that, read up about it, or get a developer or an SEO expert like Tristam or myself to help you with it, to make sure you don't mess the entire thing up. Now, back to Tristam.
Definitely. Yeah, just last bit on that. Yeah, definitely. It's always worth, if in doubt, sense check it with someone who you feel slightly more in the know, someone like myself or Jason, obviously. Yeah, because many times I see people just sort of go ahead and take a course of action, and yeah, as you said, yeah, you can accidentally de-index your entire site, and I've seen that several times as well. Not great. So let's jump into things to do in Austin. As I say,
and you now want to go to Austin, which is more surprising than New York.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of lakes and awesome things to do, places to eat, drink, etc. I mean, just this video in the background looks pretty cool. I'm quite an outdoorsy person, so yeah, this. Oh
right, I was looking for dive bars that had blues music.
I've not gone in too deep. There are some pretty cool bars. Yes, I like drinking like craft beers and ales and stuff. So there definitely looks like there's something for me in Austin. So yeah, love the website. But so let's jump in and have a look at the backlink profile. So we're going to take a slightly different approach on this one, which I think is quite good, because then I'm not kind of delivering the same information to you guys. So awesome, look at that when it comes up. Oh, that's good.
Well, I mean, that looks like less of a problem. The other one was 37%. This one was 67%. I think.
Yeah, I clicked into the wrong section. We need the backlink audit section.
So this, I mean, basically, this site has less internal linking problems, which is that the robot or the spider, whichever one we want to call it, can crawl the site more easily in this case than it could with We Love New York. But back to the backlinks.
So yeah, backlinks. You know, we've got, as I say, I'd always connect your Google Search Console to this, and look at the toxic score.
Oh,
you
right.
know, it's 100% a non-toxic, so that's awesome. So you know, that's kind of great. But what can we do there? So really, I guess you want to be looking at kind of building links moving forward. So overall, you know, it's a small backlink profile, and there's nothing to be concerned about really. You know, it's always good to check your backlinks to see what is going on, who's linking to you over a period of time. But what I would look to do, so let me just grab a couple of links. Yeah, so an example of how to create some links, I would look at, so we've got this page here.
I mean, getting links, I mean, when we come back to that whole thing of Google saying, well, don't buy them and don't swap them, it's earning them. It's the idea that I have some interesting content that another site would want to link to because it will be useful for their users. And that's empathy. If we have empathy for the people who we expect to link to us, we create content that will appeal to them, present to their users because it's useful. So that idea of empathy, I was talking to Rand Fishkin the other day, empathy, he said, "Ooh, empathy is a superpower." And I love that. Think of it from the other person's point of view and you'll move forward pretty quickly. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. So a thought is, I just jumped into the site, had a look at what some of the content was going on. And there's this great top yoga spots in Austin, Texas. It's like, this is great. But, you know, what can you do to help build links? Can you get in contact with all the yoga spots that you've discussed and written a piece of content about? and just see whether they can push this initially through social media is one option. And so, you know, these people could be like, they could say something like, we're delighted to be in the top yoga spots in Austin, Texas, on things to do in austin.com. That is one way. That's, you know, that's more of a social link. But if you look at links, there's two avenues, links being a vote of confidence for your site, but also to drive referral traffic to your site. Just by all of these, I mean, how many are here? It's about 7 that you've reviewed. So if each of these could push out through their social media saying, hey, we were covered in this, go and check it out. You know, you've just amplified that piece of content instantly in terms of sort of getting a social backlink referral to your site.
I think it's important as well to say that link swapping is saying, if you link to me, I will link to you. If you then contacted these people and said, you're actually in my top 7 best yoga places in Austin, Texas, is that pleasing for you? They will probably say, oh, great, yeah. And they will put a link on their page saying, we were voted one of the top 7 yoga places in Austin, and they will link to you. And that isn't a swapped link. It's mutually beneficial in terms of actual traffic, because you're helping them and they're helping you. And you haven't said, if you link to me, I will link to you, which was where the problem lies.
Yeah.
So if you can become a reference within the Austin community, the business community or the tourist community within Austin, as being a reference for people who want to come to Austin, they will tend to link to you naturally, because they will be proud to have been selected by you. So you need to big your brand up, man.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I guess, you know, the same to you, Jason. You've got your, and I'm probably going to say this wrong, you've got your knowledge panel or Brand SERPs tool on your company's website. So if I wrote a piece raving about how great it is, etc., contacted you, hopefully you'd be like, well, this is quite awesome. You know, he's done a nice review. He was very complimentary. Why would I not want to sort of shout about someone being nice about me? So that's a good way of kind of building up a network and some sort of social link. Secondary.
And the important thing there, Tristam, is I would tend to link to you if I thought that people would think, wow, Tristam, I believe him. He's a believable influential human being or person. So it is that thing of saying, if you want people to link to you, you have to make them feel that you're important in whatever sphere you're dealing with. So in this particular case, if you can get the world or the community within Austin, as I said earlier, to believe that you're an important reference point, you will get links. So it's actually about building your brand more than it is about link building, which I love.
Yeah, and being that authority, the A of the EAT.
Brilliantly.
And then just secondary to that, you know, are there any key contacts at companies that you're doing lists, guides on, that you could add further context to that they could add further context to the content? So, you know, either within the piece of content here or within a secondary piece of content, diving in deeper on yoga, the benefits of yoga, places to practice yoga outside. You know, could you get anyone from these companies to you know, write a piece on your site, or they write a piece on their site linking through to this review? There's a number of ways that you can kind of spin creating backlinks. Any thoughts on that one there, Jason? Well, again, building up that authority.
The thing about kind of building backlinks is I did a website for kids called Buwa and Koala, which was phenomenally successful, and we got loads of links because the content was really useful for preschools and babysitters. It was very popular within the community of people who were caring for autistic people. And so we merited the backlinks. We were useful and we were helpful. And with the podcast that I now have, which I interview people like Rand Fishkin, who I mentioned earlier on, or John Mueller from Google, or Ted Rubin a couple of weeks ago, is that it's useful content that people will link to. And the more authoritative that podcast becomes, the more links I will get. And so it's actually building, once again, my brand, rather than saying I'm actively asking Tristam to give me a link.
Yeah,
Tristam will give me a link at some point if he feels I'm creating content that's useful to people that he's trying to reach out to. Go ahead.
Exactly. And so we'll sort of round up that section because I know we're pressed for time. And we'll jump into, what Google and crawlers see that I don't. It's a fairly small site. We'll run the site search again, and we'll have a look in.
Yeah, 187 pages. That's pretty manageable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very manageable. But when we're having a look through, I think we covered some of this last time, Jason. I'll just do this. So for everyone watching, we can do this extra
I like this.
in URL, and then because I know what I'm looking for now, I've asked Google to look at this website, things to do in austin.com, and then I'm asking it then to look in the URL for anything that says tag. And so I think this is another WordPress site. So we've got post tags and we've got tag pages. And I know you had some feelings on tag or post tag pages, Jason, last time.
Yeah, well, there are a couple of things to say here. I mean, there are only 5 pages. There are 2 things to say there. Is one is at the bottom it says actually they've omitted lots, so they're actually not showing you everything they've got. So it isn't just 5. There are more pages behind that they're simply not pulling out. So that number 5 is actually misleading. And the other thing is, this is a very small site. If you had a big site, that could be thousands.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That could be a big people's resources. The thing about tags, I mean, I do have an opinion about it, and I say don't index tags. It's scattergun approach, and a scattergun approach worked 20 years ago when I was starting off with my site Bouwa and Kuala. We did that, and it worked very well. Scattergun, push as much content as you can out to Google. You will cover all your bases, and eventually you'll end up with lots of traffic from the sheer number of pages you throw at it. And today, it's more about saying which content is truly valuable, and tagged content is not generally truly valuable. If you have the idea that this page of tag content could be valuable, why don't you create a page that summarizes all that content in a useful and helpful manner that isn't just a list? So it's a question of, if you have those tagged content that you think might be useful, think about how you can present it in a user-friendly manner that Google can present to its users with pride. It can recommend this page, and I think that's fundamentally important. Every page on your site, do you think it deserves to be recommended by Google as a solution to the problem its user has expressed? Which I love as a way.
Does it have a purpose?
So I'm getting a bit overexcited with my. I'm hammering it home. I'm literally getting the hammer out. Sorry, go ahead, Tristan. I'll pass back to you.
No worries. So if we just had if we look back at that result, so we saw there's 5 results here. Google says it's not showing everything, so we'll just take it as it's 5 pages out of 167, I think it was. So bearing that in mind, over the future, put yourself a year, 5, 10 years in the future. How, if you don't sort of look into these issues now, how much bigger that could get? As we looked at the last site, We Love New York's been around for 10, 11 years. And so issues they just naturally build, it's just the thing of life, unless, even the best of brands don't necessarily manage these things in the best of ways. But having a look at things to do in Austin, I would have a look at this issue. And it goes back to what we were saying about not wasting Google's time going through pages that aren't necessarily necessary. And so what I did further, because what we want to do is just try and clean up the site so they're sort of being looked at more efficiently. And I run the site audit in SEMrush, and there was 47 pages with duplicate content. And I'll just pick out one example. We've got this page on nightlife, and we've got this page on nightlife, which are both being served up. And I just wonder, so if we say this is page A, and just that, so once you jump in here, you've landed on this page on nightlife. You've then got 2 top bars on 6th Street, Austin, and the top 9 bars on Rainy Street, Austin. I've already been through them. I know where I'm going to go and have a few beers. I love the guide. I love the information. So if we call this option A, and this page, which is more of like a search results page within the site, it does look quite cool, but with my mind, if I'm planning a trip to Austin, Texas, the chances are I'm going to want to go and see reviews and a bit more in-depth information. So this already, I feel option A gives me that better premise of making a decision. This, I'm having to now go further into each one. I can't read a synopsis of, you know, and there's only 4 results here, whereas, you know, we've got 9. Oh, and it doesn't say how many are in the second one, but we've got clearly more than the 4 that are available here. So just, yeah, wondered what everyone watching's thinking, whether you'd prefer to see option A or option B. But going back to what we were saying about crawl budget and what Google sees, Google's seeing all of these pages. So if we eradicated those tag pages, we chose just one of these to be indexed because it is coming up as duplicate content. So that needs to be rectified. Google does not like that. It's having to make a decision on where to go and what to show for search results. And
sorry, that's another good question. Beside the point of Google having to make a decision, if you're intelligent, you make that decision for Google because it's your site, it's your content. You should be deciding where people should be landing from Google, what Google should be presenting. And I agree with you, that page looks to me much more interesting. We've got an introductory text with a couple of articles. I would take away the category because you need to think about the context of the person landing on that page. If I'm coming from Google, I'm not thinking categories. I'm thinking about what am I going to do at nighttime in Austin, Texas. So the word category throws me immediately. And the title would be what to do in Austin, Texas, or nightlife in Austin, Texas, what to do. Give me some more concrete information. And the default category or default tag or whatever it might be in WordPress, you know, if you're going to choose this page, make sure that the person coming onto this page out of context from Google, or from the context of Google rather, lands on the page and finds an introduction, the first thing they see, an introduction to the subject that actually makes sense. Go ahead, Tristam.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, you know, follow those steps, try to reduce, as we've said, you make the decision, don't make Google make the decision. There's only a few issues here, but if you resolve those now, brilliant. And then you sort of build yourself a process, you know, whether you do that monthly, you know, twice a year, whenever you have time to audit these sites, I would recommend putting that in place. And then you'll just have a clean, shiny, you know, website that Google loves and your users love because they're finding the right information, staying on the site, and then, you know, you're getting all that affiliate money coming in. And so last 2 sections on this particular site I want to show is because I couldn't find similar issues to We Love New York. So in terms of content, what I was going to do is actually just recommend some possible ways of sort of expanding and creating further content with a few simple, easy steps. So firstly, I'm just going to pop in the domain name. Let this populate. And for anyone that's not used this, this is the overview of this domain. And what we want is we want to jump into organic research. Come on, computer. And then I just want to have a look at all 257 organic, because I've already picked the one I want to quickly show. So.
And it's looking through what already exists and seeing what opportunities there might be.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I saw was there's some traction on brunch in Austin, brunch Austin search terms. But as you can see, when this loads, so brunch Austin, you know, when you're looking to improve content, it can be taken in a number of ways. The approach I took was to look at things that weren't ranking great and how we can go about improving those. So I see brunch Austin is ranking, you know, in about position 69. It's actually improved recently, which is great. But, you know, how can we improve further on that term and possibly other related terms? So we've gone into this actual keyword overview in SEMrush. You've got all the detail here of the volume, keyword difficulty, cost per click, etc. But what I like here is if you're going, yeah, cool, Tristam. I've written some content on brunches, or brunch in Austin, but I need some further guidance on what to do. Well, if you scroll down here, what we've got is, and obviously you can view more information, but you've got keyword variations, you've got questions that people are asking, and probably the top two are more relevant because the volumes are showing. Could you, write further or sort of, craft your content to actually have some of these terms in them, so you can re-optimize a piece of content you're doing, or go out and create new content. So imagine that we knew how much a brunch of joggers, Austin, maybe not that one, but you can have a look through these keyword variations, questions, and related keywords to start going, okay, we've got that piece of content. Can that actually be a hub page? And I can start breaking out further pieces of content on more brunch information for Austin, so I can really start to capitalize on that. Or can I diversify the piece of content I've already written to, not keyword spam, but, craft the content so it reads better and includes some of these terms in a natural way to start picking up and ranking for these search terms.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that very quickly, I mean, just glancing at it, I see best brunch downtown Austin. I mean, that would be a really good example of taking something that's a little bit more specific. It will draw less traffic, but that traffic will be incredibly interested in what you've got to say. So you just focus on downtown brunches.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you can do another article, the other article you were talking about, which is brunches in general in Austin. Where can you go? So you've actually got two pieces there, and one doesn't exclude the other, i.e. you can have two articles. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I guess a quick process is I've just started learning recently about Austin. I now know some bars, etc. to go to and places to brunch, but I didn't really know there was because in England, we don't really have uptown, downtown in the UK. Right. But I know that is more of a thing in America. So, me being a naive English person, as I'm learning about Austin, I might just want to go, yeah, where can I brunch in Austin? And then as I'm learning more down the funnel, I might go, oh, okay, I've heard about downtown. Sounds like a really cool hit place. I'm now going to go and search best places to brunch in downtown Austin. And hopefully, boom, you come back up. Because, if the person wasn't able to find the content through your site initially, then Google should be able to serve it to them. Or they might have been researching externally and then you can, show up for that term and bring people in for that more specific term. So,
you said just Google needs to be able to serve the content to them. It's serving brunch, which is wonderful.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, that was my joke for the day. Excuse me. Right, and if we go even more specific, I mean, you said a cool place to go. I mean, a cool place to eat brunch.
Yeah, exactly. So then you can start those things.
Like you'll get less people, less than that 12K that you had earlier on. Maybe you'll have 100 people, but those 100 people are going to be very, very, very interested, very engaged, and probably convert much better for you, whatever your business model might be.
Yeah, definitely. Again, this is a whole nother conversation, but just quickly, there's always that sort of contentious argument of we should be going for the high traffic keywords. That's great, but maybe these smaller volume ones are more specific, as you said, and they're the ones that might drive a better conversion, or someone who's a bit more clued up with what they're looking for. It really depends on what your end result is wanting to be, but never shy away from that mix of high volume and low volume search terms.
Brilliant. Yeah, and as you say, that's a whole kind of big topic that I'm sure we can cover in another episode further down the line, focusing on that particular aspect, which is, what kind of keywords are we going to go after? And it is tempting, as you say, to go for the high volume ones, but they're definitely not the easiest ones, and they're not necessarily the most profitable ones. So what are we going to finish off with in Austin?
And so to finish off, no, that is not the one we want, is it? Let me grab the other link.
Is things to do in Austin just as slow as our friends in New York?
Yeah, so it's actually slightly larger. So this is saying it ran a full loaded time, 31 seconds. As I say, you won't necessarily see that. It's things that are going on behind in the background. And that is a humongous total page size.
Yes.
And you've got some image issues here, serving scaled images, but it's saying it's, it is an issue, but it's less of an issue than these particular three. So I would have a look at these top sort of 4 issues yourself or with a developer to try and reduce just the page size of what content you're loading, and yeah, make your site as quick as loading as possible, which usually means reducing the size of pages. If we saw the example on Pingdom, they were saying it was about 2 megabytes are in the top 896 sites ranking. So yeah, reduce the size, make your site load quicker. Google and other search engines will give you, will like you more, and your users will like you more, because don't think that everyone is sat at home using their phone on Wi-Fi. People, have different internet connections, and some have still in this day and age poor internet connections. So you've got huge sites, takes longer to load. And I don't know, but I know it was still a case a few years ago. Some places and people, I think it's less the case now, would pay, for how much they're, how many megabytes and gigabytes they're using on their, mobile. And so if you've got many pages, which are just huge megabyte pages, you're helping to eat away at their monthly usage. So yeah, that's not cool.
And if you look at it, Google, from Google's point of view, I was talking to Chris Liversidge, an English guy who's specializing in all this kind of stuff. Google judge you on a 3G network. Yeah. Your speed is judged on it. So even if you're in Paris, Vivian, or in the south of France like I am, the internet is pretty good here, pretty good probably in Brighton too. Even on mobile, you're on 4G, everything seems fine. It doesn't matter, because Google isn't judging you on 4G. It's judging on 3G, which is completely different. And I did a podcast episode where he explains how it works, and you realize that it's all in 14K packets. So it means everything has to be chunked into small bits. And if you can just go back to that screen again.
Oh yeah, sure.
I'm going to mention Cloudflare again, because actually Cloudflare would be a relatively simple solution to the second 2 of those problems. The deferring JavaScript is not something it can help with directly, but it does the caching and it does the consistent URL resource allocation. So Cloudflare could be a good solution. I'm not being paid by Cloudflare at all, but they have a free tier solution, which is actually very good. It's once you've got it set up, and it works really well, and it does resolve a lot of these problems for you. And so that might be worth looking into if you don't have a developer or you can't afford a developer.
Exactly. And that neatly brings us to the end of the slightly longer than I would hope presentation, but I hope both people's sites that I spoke about, I'd love to know, like in the last episode, if you take these away, these issues, you rectify them, I'd love you to hit me up, and I can share this with Jason and Travelpayouts, etc., just to understand what improvements you've seen from making these changes. I'm such a geek, I get excited with this stuff, so I'm just going to stop sharing my screen.
No, it's absolutely, for me, that wasn't too long. 1 hour and 20 minutes, just about right. We gave both sites half an hour each. That was totally fair. There was absolutely boatloads of really useful information there, Tristam. Thank you very much. And I think both site owners are going to benefit from actually thinking about what they can do to implement all that. But anybody who's got a site will be able to pull some useful and helpful and actionable information from there. So absolutely wonderful, brilliant. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you Travelpayouts for allowing us to do this rather delightful site analysis. We enjoy doing it. We're going to be back next time, which will be in about a month's time. We're not sure when. Hopefully Tristam will agree to come back again for a 3rd time, because this is turning out to be quite an effective and interesting and fun and enjoyable duo. Thank you very much to everybody. Please do come back next time. See you soon.
Bye.